Hello, everyone, and thank you for participating in the Lytham Partners 2022 Spring Investor Conference. My name is Joe Diaz. I'm a managing partner at Lytham Partners. For this presentation, we welcome Ontrack Health, which trades on the NASDAQ exchange under the ticker symbol of OTRK. Representing Ontrack today are Jonathan Mayhew, Chief Executive Officer, and Brandon Laverne, Chief Financial Officer. Jonathan and Brandon will run through a slide presentation, and if time permits, we will engage in a brief Q&A session afterwards. Before we begin, Lytham Partners is one of the country's leading investor relations firms. With more than 2 decades of corporate access experience, we've built one of the industry's most diverse and effective platforms for connecting small cap companies with high quality and focused institutional investors. We thank all of you for participating today. One final item before we begin. Jonathan and Brandon will be available for one-on-one meetings later this week. If you have not already signed up, please visit the Lytham Partners website at lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meeting request button. With that said, let me turn the proceedings over to Jonathan Mayhew, Chief Executive Officer of Ontrak Health. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Joe, thank you very much. On behalf of Ontrak, we are thrilled to be here today and share with you a number of the exciting investment and development initiatives that have been underway with Ontrak. And so with that, what I'd like to do is take everyone through our enhanced clinical model and talk about the emergence of some of our new technologies that have helped us enhance the clinical model. To get started with, we have continued the mission of the organization, but the strategic vision of Ontrack is to make sure that we are transforming the healthcare journey for people with complex physical, mental, and social care needs. And we want to do that with the emergence of technology, AI-infused capability, and a set of measurement-based clinical principles that help guide members to the very best outcomes that we can help create. Some of the key drivers that have been the focus of the organization are first and foremost to use machine learning, advanced machine learning, AI principles through each of the member steps. And I'll describe that in a little bit more detail, but from eligibility, identification, things that we can develop for the prediction of future events, all the way through engagement, treatment, and what it takes to activate individuals into the very best post-treatment effects that we can create. We want to use information, use data, and continue to retrain our model to help members advance all the way through graduation. Secondly, we want to make sure that there are a set of evidence-based coaching principles, right, where we can develop measurement, assessment, insights that will help guide a set of graduation principles. We really want to make sure that we are measuring as much as we can at every step of the member journey. And what's critical, number 3, to the foundations that we're building the program on is making sure that we've got like-minded proprietary and preferred provider relationships so that both from a technology integration as well as a care practice standpoint, we'll have the ability to share information both bidirectionally. What we obtain for information on individuals can be shared relative to progress and strategies and rewards that individuals are looking for. So what I look forward to doing today is to try to describe these key drivers in a bit more detail. We are really built to help improve the access for the individuals that we have the pleasure and the privilege to support. Fundamentally, this is a big part of what we have all become sensitized to through the past couple of years in the COVID-19 pandemic. But we aspire to help individuals that are from a population health point of view, small in number, right? 4, 5, 6% of the general population, that might drive, as much as 40 to 50% of the total cost of care. And these are individuals with high acuity, high cost kinds of medical complexities, but are not finding their way to the behavioral health support. And that might be behavioral health support for things like anxiety, addiction, and depression that really are impeding their ability to improve on their chronic disease. And so this is a big part of the access problem that we aspire to help improve. And I'll, again, go a little bit deeper on techniques and activities that will help support this really important population. While the primary focus for Ontrack as an organization sits on the right-hand side of this slide to make sure that high acuity solutions primarily for health plans is what the core of the organization has continued to be built around. And again, that's the untreated needs for people with behavioral health conditions and chronic medical requirements. We aspire to make sure that there is an evidence-based clinical model that is designed to improve access and ultimately not just create behavioral health improvement, but to make sure that medical costs and improved clinical outcomes and utilization has occurred. But we also have a set of low acuity solutions for a broader spectrum of care. We probably sit here today with tens of thousands of employer lives that are sitting in the Life Dojo low acuity, primarily digitally oriented set of capabilities. There are tools, there are personalized sets of well-being solutions that individuals can access on a per member, per month basis. We are working hard to expand those services, but the bulk of what we have invested in, the bulk of where we've applied our technology solutions has really been around the high acuity, high cost spend population that was outlined on that previous slide. We have continued to make sure that the investment in the model has occurred. I would describe around these 4 dimensions. If I start you in the top left-hand box and work clockwise around this slide, first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're creating as much customer value as we possibly can. So how do we do that? We concentrate on the highest cost, highest acuity individuals. We make sure that we develop a set of financial returns that can be achieved both in the first year and the second year and beyond. So the durability of the kind of financial results that we are attempting to achieve are first and foremost in terms of creating a set of customized value creation opportunities for our customers. 2 is clinical outcomes. It's important that we're person-centered. We want to look at the individual's needs and make sure that goals and graduation criteria are set in a measurable, individualized manner. And we want to make sure that there's a comprehensive set of measurements that occur for each stage and step for the member's journey. Number 3 is to make sure that we are well aligned with like-minded treating professionals. So how we think about speed of referral, speed of access to care, how we make sure that the coaches and the data that we derive from individuals through the claims information that we obtain from health plans can be organized in a manner that helps facilitate treatment by our coaches, by primary care physicians, and most importantly, by the therapists and the treating professionals that are supporting the behavioral health needs. And lastly, on the left is technology. We will use the digital platform to create a fusion of technology and human and therapist intervention. We'll make sure that our technology platform is accessible to the individuals that we support, is formatted in a way for our coaches and therapists to be able to interact in a much more seamless and timely manner. And then as individuals, both the treating professionals as well as the individuals increasingly have the opportunity to interact with an integrated platform, we'll be able to derive information and predictions and analytics that will help us be much more precise in supporting the individual's needs. So those are the four dimensions: our capital and operating budgets and professional capabilities as an organization are really aligned around these four dimensions for the high acuity approach. And what it really results in is a view of sort of front end to back end, how our model is designed to progress. So, we tend to start on behalf of the health plan populations by ingesting their claims information. We have built a risk model. That risk model helps us stratify an individual based on a set of predictions of future events. And we will tend to work that information off of claims information and a set of member characteristics that can be shared with us through a health plan's file feeds. Examples of what that risk model might look like. Let me see if I can take that up. So, these are some of the data elements that sit behind the proprietary set of AI capabilities. But from a risk standpoint, we'll look at the cost of an individual, we'll look at their utilization history, we'll look at their disease burden, the propensity for mortality to be associated with that individual's chronic disease background. We'll look at the demographic information. We'll look at social risk factors that can be obtained increasingly through what's referred to as the Z codes, but those are the social risk factors that might suggest, geography and lack of access to certain basic services can be things that are associated with disease and mortality. The chronic disease burden that we most frequently encounter would be represented in some of these, chronic disease conditions that are listed here. So whether it's hypertension, chronic disease, chronic pain, diabetes, pulmonary, whether it's COPD or asthma-related conditions, tend to be some of the underlying comorbidities that are associated with the individuals that we tend to treat. From there, we have been able to take that information around the risk model and begin to put it into a set of predictive algorithms and features. And so whether it's the impactable cost, whether it's a number of the disease indicators, whether it's the social risk factors, or whether it is any of the data that would create signals for trying to understand whether someone is suffering from depression, perhaps substance use or anxiety, we can either look at information that might be available through the pattern of claims in the risk model, or it might be some signals that may have occurred in the past year or two where there would be indications that individuals may have been suffering from one of these behavioral health dimensions, and we can tell that they have not had a sustained level of treatment, support occurring. From there, what we would look to try to make sure we do is to risk stratify individuals through all the health plan's members so that we can create a sort of most in need view. And that most in need view of a member can effectively be turned into a set of data-driven personas for our dedicated outreach and clinical coaching teams to begin to work with. And this is an example of a woman by the name of Cindy. And this would not be an uncommon data-driven persona In this particular instance, it's a Medicaid beneficiary. We can see that there are frustrations and limitations and some social dimensions that we're able to model off of some of those Z codes. We can look at this individual's proclivity or access to technology and know that we may have trouble with some of the mobile platform and sort of omni-channel outreach capabilities that would be associated with mobile technology if we can't, through the course of interaction with this individual, get sort of a greater take-up rate and exposure to some of those mobile and tech-enabled interfaces. We can see where some of the opportunities might exist. So when we talk about an individualized set of goal initiatives, we would look at where some of these opportunities are, and we would want to make sure that through the outreach and through the coaching interfaces at the beginning of the Ontrack process, we would want to explore these opportunities to make sure that they feel right for Cindy and what we'd want to achieve through those dimensions of care. From an engagement standpoint, this is a view of how the Whole Health Plus Ontrack program would lay out from beginning to end. So, as I've mentioned, we would look for some predictive items in their claims to be able to predict future events. We want to optimize the interventions and treatment as best as we can to understand what problems and solutions would be most important through the initial conversations with a member. We want to make sure that as early on in the enrollment of the member into the Ontrack program, we are helping them access behavioral health care. So we've got a set of standards on access. We try to use information as best as we can obtain it through the data and through the course of interviews and the coaching sessions to be able to match somebody's technology, comfort, as well as some of the matching principles geographically and culturally on who those clinicians and therapists might be that would be most comfortable to optimize a whole person set of interventions. And then from there, we'll be able to obtain treatment results that I'll describe for you in a little bit more detail here momentarily. I mentioned, the network enhancements and the provider collaboration, and at the end of the day, it's really designed to help make sure that these members who are most in need will have access to care in a timely way. And so some of that comes through a technology interface where we can share coach notes and the information that we obtain. We can obtain it through some of the assessments that go on at the time of coach enrollment. But we can also make sure that through access to a shared set of calendar and scheduling features, we can help cut down on the time that's associated with getting members access to care. And then as it relates to graduation, these are some of the high level sort of graduation and activation standards and goals that we look for through the completion of the Ontrack program. But, first and foremost, to make sure that a number of these, what we refer to as SMART goals, which are measurable and accountable and verifiable kinds of outcomes. Can an individual display some self-management and improvement skills? Is there a comfort and confidence associated with managing not just their behavioral health condition, but their underlying medical condition? Can they fully engage with a primary care physician? We can see that both in terms of what the member tells us, but also we can see that through the claims information to make sure that they really are adhering to an ongoing primary care and in many instances, specialist visit activities that are associated with their treatment plan. And then have they been fully engaged with a therapist or a psychiatrist? If there are medications that are associated with any of that treatment, is there an adherence with those kinds of activities? And to the degree that we see these kinds of criteria being fulfilled, it gives us a really good appreciation and understanding of the individual's readiness to move out of the Ontrack program. And so on average, we'll see members in the Ontrack program for something in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 months. About 45% of the individuals might be in the program for as long as 12 months. And I won't click on it here, but we've got some testimonials that are associated with how people feel when they finally have achieved some of these criteria, and how they feel their life has been impacted, and the hope and the optimism and the confidence that they have to manage the adversities that they have been dealing with really does place people in a very different place as they come through these kinds of graduation and activation criteria. There is a durability that is associated with what we continue to have confidence in that we represent to the health plans and the payers that we work with. We have documented a 64% reduction in inpatient admissions. This has resulted in something that is just under $500 per member per month, $486 per month per member per month in savings. We have seen that persist for 24 months, which rolls up to something just under $12,000 per savings per member over a 2-year period of time. And what we do notice, because these have been care avoidant individuals, these have been individuals who have not found their way comfortably or naturally to seeking behavioral health services, is we have seen as these individuals activate their care is an increase in their primary care and their behavioral health services, but that $110 of increase in primary care and behavioral health support is more than offset by the durability and the reduction in inpatient admissions, ED admissions, and a lot of unnecessary diagnostic treatment. As we talk about both the behavioral health improvement, the social health improvement, and then the underlying medical costs that's associated with getting individuals to engage in their health, there are a number of dimensions that we increasingly are in conversations with integrated delivery system partners, as well as Medicaid and Medicare payer customers, that these dimensions of value-based care measurement are things that we would, I would say, continue to want to make sure that we can demonstrate some real impact in. So whether it's behavioral health assessments like PHQ-9 or GAD-7, whether it's understanding the customer satisfaction that's associated with elements of the program that we support, whether it's some of the risk adjustment in improvements that are associated with creating a behavioral health diagnosis and then getting the treatment plan attended to for these individuals. These are many dimensions that help with measurement and outcomes, and ultimately, both revenue enhancement and medical cost reduction under a value-based care framework. So, with each of the health plans, depending on the line of business, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or duals, these various kinds of measurements and outcomes take on more or less value depending on the customer that we're talking with. But, when you hear these terms like gaps in care, this is just a good framework for us to make sure that we're describing where the Ontrack program can create value associated with reductions in cost, improvement in member experience and satisfaction, and then a whole set of measurement and outcome initiatives that drive the value-based framework. And lastly, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Brandon Laverne, who is our Chief Financial Officer, to describe some of the financial results that sit behind the Ontrack program.
Sure, thanks, Jonathan. So Ontrack has a proven history of significant year-over-year revenue increases while simultaneously expanding gross margins over the past several years through significant improvements in efficiency, our data intake processes, our staffing models, and lots of other things we've been able to put in place to work on that gross margin in particular. This has resulted in us achieving 3 consecutive quarters of positive adjusted EBITDA ending in Q2 this past year. While we entered 2022 with a much different trajectory, with the updated enhanced clinical model that Jonathan's described and the pipeline opportunities that it's enabled us to partake in, we believe we can again see revenue growth and that positive EBITDA that we'd seen before again in 2023. And so that concludes our presentation here, and I'll turn it back to you, Joe.
Again, thank you for a good presentation here, very timely. I have a couple of questions here. How is what you're doing at Ontrack different from what the traditional health plans do themselves? For instance, they all have some version of case management to help members through care. What are you doing differently?
Really good question. Obviously, it's the heart at the heart of the value proposition. I would try to say it a couple of different ways. One is we are a targeted set of capabilities and solutions for the most in need individuals who have not been accessing behavioral health services and really need to. And, I think, what we've all been exposed to with the pandemic is there's a lot of care-seeking individuals, right? There's a lot of people that have been feeling strain and have been in need of support services. And, what we are primarily built to do around our high acuity solutions is look for people who've got a set of needs, both medically and behaviorally, and are not accessing the delivery system in a timely, effective way for a whole host of reasons, right? Not the least of which are the social barriers that really might exist in their community or in their lives. And so by identifying these individuals, having a really robust set of outreach capabilities, which typically aren't resident inside the health plans, and then helping these people understand what a set of reasonable and achievable treatment goals can be. Our coaches and our technology and our alignment with behavioral health providers is not condition specific, although we do deal with a certain set of common chronic conditions. We're really built around a continuum of care for people who are not receiving the sufficient level of services. And that's in contrast to typically the way most health plans are built, is on a condition basis. Case managers and disease management programs are built much more on a set of condition principles versus access and care continuum principles that Ontrack is built on. So really good question, and hopefully that helps clarify a little bit.
As it relates to your AI capabilities, are you developing your own or do you use outside vendors? And if you do your own, how do you protect your IP?
Great question. So, yes, the data analytics and how we derive conclusions from the information that we have access to is a set of proprietary capabilities built and managed by our engineers and our data analytic research professionals. We use a set of common tools that might exist and be available across a number of different industries. I might draw the the analogy that there's lots of organizations that have engineers working in SQL or on some sort of fairly common technology platform, but what those engineers do by accessing those common tools are really different for each and every industry. And so we do use a set of both behavioral health tools as well as healthcare industry tools. But the data analytics, the insights that we derive, our ownership of those insights are all things that are proprietary and increasingly will be protected by the rights that Ontrack has. So really good question, and making sure that we've got an increasingly large and enabled group of data professionals is really important as we improve our access to some of the capabilities and the tools that exist in the industry.
One final question here. What are the most common questions that you get from prospects? Is this value proposition gaining traction with them?
I would say it is. I mean, our activity in the marketplace over, certainly the past year has exploded. Maybe some of that is the environment that we're in because of COVID. But, access to behavioral health services is the number one issue, right? For the behavioral health. And I'd go as far as saying access to behavioral health services is maybe the healthcare industry's number one issue. There are not enough treating professionals. Digital solutions have proliferated in the marketplace as a way to defer or deflect maybe some of the the limitations that exist around not having enough therapists and psychiatrists. And we are a fusion of technology and human therapy interaction. And our way of helping this access problem in the industry is to take some of those most in need individuals, some of those highest acuity individuals, and make sure that they get proprietary access and preferred access to the right kind of treating professionals. And so, as you said, like the timeliness of these kinds of solutions is real, and our ability to identify, target, and then hold the hand of the member, both from a human engagement as well as a technology engagement, is super important to make sure the right people get access to the right treating professional in as timely of a manner as possible. And that is essentially the value proposition at the end of the day for the Ontrack Whole Health Plus program.
Well, we'll have to leave it at that. Jonathan, Brandon, we thank you very much for your overview of the company. Exciting times over there at Ontrack, and looking forward to some interesting developments here in the coming quarters. We appreciate your time and your expertise. As a reminder to our investor audience, anyone out there that has not already signed up for one-on-one meetings, again, please visit Lytham Partners website at lythampartners.com/virtual and click the one-on-one meeting request button. We hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great day.